live reality game podcast. My name is Steven, and I'm very excited today because we are doing the Mole, Ohio 2024 season retrospective. Joining me today, we have a group of players, and we have the man himself who runs this game from the shadows, Tim. Tim, how are you doing?
I am doing great. I am ready for Thanksgiving break, ready for winter break, ready to be done with the semester, but doing great. How are you?
I, as also teacher, very much excited for Thanksgiving and
Mhm.
winter break and catching my breath as well. Um, Tim, could you go ahead and introduce all the players here who are joining us for this podcast?
Yeah, so we are joined by four legends. We have Daddy Matt, Matt Sheed. I don't know if you want to like also introduce yourselves a little bit too. Like,
Definitely. Daddy Matt, I'm from Austin, Texas. Just a silver fox trying to survive here in the red state of Texas. Glad to be here with everyone and unpack everything that needs to be unpacked.
mhm, yeah. And we also have Richard, aka Casino. Um, so definitely one of the dropped one of the biggest bombshells in the Mole, Ohio history, much less this season. Richard, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I'm 34. Again, my name is from Jersey, poker player, card hustler, lover of reality TV and homemade games, LRGs, ORGs, and Survivor related. I'm into. So this was really fun to do, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Yeah. And we also have Nate, aka the former Scooter Patrol.
Yeah.
Um, tell us about yourself, Nate.
Yeah, I'm Nate. I'm 29 from Columbus, Ohio. I was the crippled player for the season. Was happy to fill in the spot, and I was also the bombshell benefactress. Thanks to Richard.
And last but not least, we have Mira, who was a returning player and sort of brought the Taylor Swift math energy to season 5.
We love living in a land of delusion.
Mm-hmm.
But like Tim said, my name is Mira. I'm 27 from Columbus, Ohio. I'm a Ryan White case manager, so I help people living with HIV and AIDS. And this is, I actually got my first ever start for allergies on the Mole, Ohio 2023. So bringing it back around a year later to be a returning player was absolutely fantastic.
Awesome, yeah. This was such a fun season for me to plan, but also just to watch it unfold and piece together that story for everybody who followed along, watched along, and so that's why I'm so excited to be able to unpack everything that happened. A lot of stuff that didn't fully make it to cameras. And I can start, I guess. I don't want to talk like too much. I kind of want to let the players discuss too, and I'll just kind of moderate a little bit. But a little bit of background on like this was a nightmare scenario in terms of like logistically putting this game together. We started with a cast initially of 13, 7 of whom ended up needing to drop, including 3 who needed to drop within 72 hours of the start of the game. I was able to fill 4 of those 7 slots, but so we ended up with a cast of 10. But the other thing that was like terrifying was Wayne's flight from Philly into Columbus got canceled while he was at the gate. And that was the day that we were starting. And so I was freaking out. Thankfully, he was able to get get the last spot on a flight into Cincinnati instead. yeah, so that was just sort of the icing on the cake in terms of the stress that went into production. So yeah.
I was one of the in the 72 hours filler people because I made a joke and I was like, I'm so excited to see this season. And then I was like, also, if you need a last minute person, you know, I live in Ohio. And then Tim messaged like a day later and was like, were you actually serious? And I was like, yeah, I don't have anything going on this weekend. I'll drive to Wilmington.
And so glad that you were able to step in. Yeah. So it was a shaky lead up to it for sure. But yeah.
So were Matt, Nate, and Richard all part of the original cast?
Matt and Nate were. Richard was a relatively late addition. Not one of the last 72 hours people, but yeah.
Yeah, I knew about, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks before the game, me and Tim got kind of linked up. And yeah, I ended up driving down like 9 hours to get there. I was the first one there. And I remember on the way down, like I was watching another show, another LRG that Matt was actually on. And like I'm watching it the whole way down there, and the second and third person to show up was Matt and Nina. And like Matt walks up the stairs, and I'm like, I just saw this guy. That's crazy. Like, and now he's here. So it was funny how it all worked out. And like I said all season that like 10 was like my lucky number, and Wayne was the last player to show up. And Tim did such a good job because he was like, oh, we're waiting on another player. And I'm thinking in my head, like, oh, he said player. So usually the last person to show up probably wouldn't be the mole. So he was like lower on my suspect list originally just because of those things. So like him, that was really well done. Even though it might not have been like intentional on
No,
Wayne's
it was
end,
not.
but
It was
him
just
coming late definitely like lowered me looking at him, at least initially.
awesome. That's a good benefit, I guess, of that cluster jam of traveling. Yeah.
Can I ask a question real fast to each player?
Yeah.
Mira, all those things you found in the game, those like the note cards everywhere, where did those come from?
So they came from two different players who didn't know that the other was doing the thing originally. The postcard was Wayne's, which, you know, love that for him. And he actually did have a clue put in the postcard. He just did not wear the shirt that related to the clue that he had in the postcard.
Wait, did he put a clue in that pointed to him?
Yes,
Wow.
If you are able to understand my delusional rambling, I mentioned that there are certain word like letters underlined on the postcard that spell out 8. And he had brought an 8-ball like shirt with him and he was going to wear it. And he talked to me about this later on that like he didn't specifically wear it the third day because I had like gone crazy and started figuring out all these connections that weren't there. The other person who was planting items was Sarah. And she was quite literally just ripping up pieces of paper with letters and numbers and placing them around the house. And I thought I was on the trail. I thought I was like on top of it. I was just like one step away from really like completing the chain. If I would have taken the fact that it says the mole will lie right to your face on the postcard and been like, so clearly it can't be Nina, I would have been right on track to win.
Nate, the scooter. Did you ever lean into that? Because there was a 1% who was like, man, I really hope he's faking the injury this entire time just to be on the scooter the whole game.
Not necessarily. So I broke my ankle during the Challenge Great Lakes, which was like, I think it was like June 14th. So I like just freshly broke it. I had surgery on like the 24th. So I was like 2 to 3 weeks like post-op, and like I was like, it was still pretty swollen, still pretty sore, but I was like, I really want to play this game. I'm like so tired of being in my house, and like they aren't gonna give me any more like find like pain meds anymore, so I might as well just like push myself to the limits and go play this game. And at first, like it was kind of like hard to really adjust because I'm just like I'm already a bigger person and I'm like wheeling through the house and like in everybody's way. And it's like I think I just accidentally was just being a nuisance in every challenge, but I never really leaned into it. I feel like I was just trying to pretend that I wasn't on a scooter the entire time, just living in my delusional life. But I really think I should have. I think I was just like so excited to like play a game and like be back in it, even though that's like what took me out in the last game I played. So yeah, I didn't really lean into it as much as I could have. And I feel like people's suspicion of me of being the mole like ended pretty quickly. I feel like after episode 2, I think it was 2 or 3.
Matt, you played Subversion. You're coming playing the Mole Ohio. There's kind of an iterative process. Like, how are you playing this game in reaction to the previous game? Especially because people could have watched you play the game, which people had.
I assumed if people knew that I had been a mole in a previous game, they would think that I would try to change up my strategy. So I did try to keep a similar strategy that I use as a mole. I play a social game, be kind of out there asking people questions and things like that. And I was trying to do a little bit of, well, I don't know, but that's naturally like, I think Mira said it in a confessional or something that I kind of play the mole game like I play Survivor. And I love the social aspect of all these games, like what people do in tough situations. And we're all supposed to be working together as a team, right? But we're all still kind of lying to each other. I don't know. It's really cool to see what people do when they're in these pressure cooker situations.
And Richard, you mentioned like Wayne was the last one to arrive in the house. I kind of discounted him as a result. Looking back, were there any assumptions or kind of things you grabbed or latched onto? Looking back, like, what was I thinking, or that was the wrong decision?
Yeah, I mean, I was always answering at least a couple questions on Wayne, but the round that I had went out, I only put I think 2 or 3 on him, and I remember it was like me. I think me, Matt, everyone that was upstairs. It was like me, Matt, Nate, and Wayne, and we kind of all discussed the possibility of like the mole being like a man or a woman. And when Wayne walked away, we all kind of like agreed to ourselves, like, if it's a guy, it's probably Wayne. And like, I don't know, Nina was so good at giving little information, but answering your question at the same time. My eggs were in her basket because like, I really thought it was her. I think a lot of people thought it was her. And I think that's ultimately why she did so well. So if I could go back, I think that I would be a little bit more like dynamic with switching up who I was like focused on, and taking a little bit more attention off of Nina specifically.
May I ask a question?
Go for it.
This is for Nate and Richard. Like, we had that first double. Richard, you guys come back. What was your strategy going into that second? That next elimination where you knew one of you was going, and I was so curious where your brains were at and were you guys trying to work together so one of you would survive and share information, or play against each other? What was going on there?
I mean, I think we both understood, like, it was kind of like one of us is going to stay and one of us isn't. Like, I wasn't like actively working against him, but I knew from just talking to him, his strategy was going to be that he was going to go all in on one person. And I thought that was the right strategy. But in the event that like Nate was wrong about who he was putting all his answers on, I decided to like throw 1 or 2 answers on like 2 other people, just in the event that he was wrong, I would survive with just 1 or 2 right. But I think I got 6 right in that last quiz that I went out when me and Nate went head to head, and he got like 9. So I wasn't actively working against him, but I did formulate like my test strategy based on the fact that I knew Nate was going to be going all in on one person.
Yeah, I definitely I knew I was really sad to be going out like second round. I was like, oh, I've never gone out this early in an LRG. I was like, this sucks. When that whole thing happened, I was like, oh my god, I'm somehow back in this game. I don't know. And I knew I was like, all right, it's time to really play and like figure out who the mole is. I want to go all in. And so I was really kind of debating between Nina was like my number one suspect initially. But since I put like a few answers on her and then got eliminated, I was like, well, it's probably not her. Even though I was like, she'd be perfect at it. I was so convinced. So then I was just really trying to kind of get information from other players of like who they think it was. And like there were like a couple people that were kind of like, it was like Matt or Wayne or Sarah. So I was like, okay, it's probably one of those players. And I do remember Sarah was trying to get information from me based off of like my test. And she's like, well, if you give me information now, I'll give you information next round. I'm like, girl, I got a 50% chance this round. I get nothing, girl. I need this round myself. And so Wayne was the one I was really unsure about. And I just remember I pulled him out to the patio and like we were having a conversation. And then like just like halfway through our conversation, I was like, are you the mole? And he got like so red. And I feel like he was just caught so off guard that he was just like, no. And I was like, oh, you're the fucking mole. I was like, I just caught your ass. I was like, I should have done this day one. And so I knew I was like, I'm putting all my answers on him. And I was like, as long as I do it faster than Richard, if Richard is going all in, then I know I'll be here next round. And that was my strategy. And it worked. Thank God. Sorry to Richard's behalf, but to have our Romeo Juliet situation.
It was a bittersweet moment because like me and Nate, like when Nate first got there, Tim was like, oh, somebody's going to be coming that hurt their foot. So like I went out to his truck and like helped him bring his stuff in. And like we had gotten like really close and like we're working together. And when it was me and him, like it was like, dang, like it's either going to be like me or like somebody that I'm like really close with. So, I mean, I was happy for him that he moved through, but like, you know, obviously upset that I went out so early, but you know, in retrospect, I'm happy that because I don't know if I would have been able to get as far as Nate got, you know. So,
Matt and Mira, did you also go all in the rounds you went home?
No.
So who were you splitting on at that point, Mira?
So the round prior, I was split on Nina and Wayne. And if I would have stayed split on them, I would have stayed. However, I switched almost all of my answers over to Sarah because she made a comment before the sit-off that Wayne and I had with the water gun about, oh, how funny would it be if you guys had to just like duel, like pistol style. And then out comes a water gun pistol. And I was like, I've been going down the wrong trail. I need to switch it. I need to split between Nina and Sarah and not Nina and Wayne. And that is my demise as I went too far in on that. To be fair, those were the three I was splitting on the entire time because they had the most overlap in their dossier. So for the first couple of rounds, it was easiest just to be like, okay, brown hair, earth star sign, like favorite drink is coffee or water, stuff like that.
And Matt, you were all in on Nina?
Yes. There's that scene where I'm like crying at the table because I had a conversation with them in the car. We were riding together. Some conversation. I was like, look, we all don't trust each other. Can we just all three please just move to the end together? Because I was so sure Nina was the mole and Nate thought I was the mole. And so so just like, let's just all move together. And then there's this conversation in my head that I'm just like, man, Nina's trying so hard and everyone knows it's her and I feel really bad. And so I went all in her and I'm trying to like convince Wayne to go Nina. Like, it's not me. She's misdirecting you, but whoops. So yeah, I went all in on Nina.
I love the scenes of the two of you, like these like strangely awkward conversations you had that we would see where like you could both of you don't trust each other, but you both were like these close allies for that at the start of Surviving Bloomington. You're like, all right, we can play together, but we kind of can't. It's just like, oh.
I will see. I always go into these LR. I don't know how it is for other people. Like, I always want like my ride or die, but people don't trust me fully, or I'm like someone's number 3 or number 4. And here she was giving me all the information. I'm like, nah. This is too good to be true. She's just trying to put me on everybody else. But then she really was giving me all her information. I should have trusted her.
Yeah, it was so fun watching, especially like there was a conversation that you were having with Nina, Matt, where it was, I think it was in round 3 when we were at the other house, and you were just standing on the front porch, and the tension was palpable. It was great. It was fantastic cinema right there.
Other players were saying it too in their confessionals, that like there's the game, like we're trying to read what's going on in the game, but there's all this the vibes, or like the other stuff that's going on, and she was just acting weird, and I was like, what is going on with you? And she's just being coy with me, like,
yeah. And I think that because the first challenge with the Slinkies was so like, you know, basically earned the maximum amount that you could have, I think that led people to ignore what was going on in subsequent challenges and just focus on external stuff, which was really interesting to watch too. It was kind of like, oh, well, you know, there was nothing to find in nothing to look for in that challenge. So yeah.
Tim, what should people have picked up on in that challenge? What did people miss?
Well, in that challenge in particular, or in others?
Let's start with that one.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think that Nina kind of mentioned this later toward I think it was in the finale, how Wayne was able to kind of misdirect her during that challenge in terms of like where who was taking the missing ping pong ball, for instance, and she was just like, it never occurred to me that he had taken it, you know. She just assumed that it was either that it was Richard or Sarah, and yeah, so that was just an interesting thing to see. I think in terms of like actual like pre-planned clues, the only one that I specifically like planned in advance was in the very last round with the knot tying. I chose that they would have to tie a Flemish bend knot, and that was kind of like a 2-part Easter egg. One is the mole as a format is originally Flemish, but more to the point, Wayne is Flemish. Like his last name is Flemish. He's of Flemish descent, and so that was why I selected that, anticipating that nobody would really think to look at that. Yeah,
I wasn't Googling origins of names. It was not part of the calculator.
Yeah.
So question to the players: that first challenge with the Slinky and the ping pong balls, were you looking to sabotage that point? Was there just no opportunity to sabotage?
Steven tried to sabotage really poorly. He intentionally didn't say which clue was his for like the first like 5-6 minutes. And like every time I'd be like, hey, like, do you have stepbrothers? Do you like me stepbrothers? He'd be like, huh? And I'm like, okay. But he's playing a Nathan. He's trying to get people to think he's a mole. I will say, however, I don't know who started saying that it was Mira's idea to sit down on the couch early. It was not, and that is fucked up of whoever started it, because it was the athletic 20-something-year-old man who chose to sit down, not me.
Yeah, I specifically thought that any sabotages in like the first like 1 to 3 challenges, I mean, it's something that you could take like into account, but I thought that with just how the group was, like I assumed that the mole probably wouldn't like get into like real sabotaging until like, you know, later rounds or more bigger sabotages. I thought maybe, you know, like a ping pong ball could be hit or something small could be done in the first couple rounds. But like that kind of eliminated Steven for me personally. I think that I took an opposite approach. Like I was eliminating people instead of like focusing on who I thought specifically was suspicious. So for like instance, like Matt, Nate, Sarah, Steven, I never answered one question on them the entire time. Like I kind of ruled them out within, I don't know, not a short period of time, but pretty quickly. And I think that if I could go back, I would probably do an opposite approach and like really focus on suspects instead of eliminating people who I thought weren't the mole. Um, so yeah, or maybe that'll help.
For me, I like think I was like trying to figure out what strategy I was going to go with. I was like, I just played like traders like 2 months prior to that, and I was a trader, and like it was so fun, and I like loved it. And then I think like for some reason when they said like the prize pot was going to be like $1,000, I was like, I haven't been working that much because of this ankle and this surgery is expensive. I was like, let's get some money for the fucking pot. And so that first challenge, I was just like reading off the answers, and people weren't answering me, and I'd be like, Steven, answer me. Do you have stepbrothers? I was just like trying to corner them with my scooter because I was like, correct. I was like, this is $50 right here, right? And I think that kind of like threw off like kind of like my whole game. Like all suspicion was off of me because I feel like each game I was like trying so hard to add money to the pot because I was like, that pot's gonna be mine. So it kind of like lowered my suspicion level for other people quite a lot.
Except when you were touching everyone's block in the next competition.
I was helping Nina on the end, my other people.
I think for me and Trish, we were like, let's get some money. And we were purposely putting a lot of balls in Trish's because Nate and Trish knew each other. So we were sure that they were like, we'll probably get Trish's and do that. Trish was really smart. She was on to Wayne and Nina early on saying like, hey, they're like messing up. Because we were like yelling like, there's more in the bathroom. And we weren't seeing them go. But I will say, like, you know, Nate was in my way all the time on his scooter. And I didn't realize you had 2 different scooters, like the second day, right? And they were like changing colors. And I was like, he's messing with us. This can't be real.
The inside one in the all-terrain. I was like, we got to be ready for whatever is coming in this challenge.
But I will say that you, like, being so, like, forward and, like, trying to get the answers from people, and Kat just kind of like fading to the background, kind of put Kat on the top of my list, and her decision to leave the game like had me flabbergasted because I just would have gone on off the Kat cliff.
The whole scenario had me flabbergasted too. It's just, yeah.
I was like, back in the game, but the one person that I made my ride or die in this game, I was like, gets eliminated. I was like, this is so. And I was like, I have a 50% chance of like making it to the next round. I was like, I can't rely on them because like, we were just bouncing information off each other and trying to like throw suspicion on each other. So yeah, that sucked. Love me some Kat.
Yeah, I think I answered a couple questions on her that round that I went out. So like seeing her get up and take the like offer, I was like, damn, like I guess like I was kind of off. If she's wanting to leave, like willing to leave, like shouldn't have done that. But yeah, I thought of the 2 of you, like I said, I didn't answer any questions on Nate the entire time, but I agree with Matt, like you being more vocal and trying to pull answers out of people made me look at Kat more than you.
So that letter block challenge, I think Matt and Nate, both of you touched block at a certain time. Was that something you were consciously doing, or is that just like once like they were to hear the penalties, like, oh shoot, I did do that.
Not intentional at all. Mira clocked my tea real quick. I was not listening to the instructions.
I was like, Nate doesn't listen to the rules.
Yeah. I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, who's gonna win? I'm like, as soon as I hear what the challenge is, the fine print kind of goes out the window. And like that is exactly what happened. And I was just like, when they said 7 times, I was like, oh. And seeing it on film, I was like, oh yeah, I was all in those blocks.
I know for me, like I heard the rule, but like I didn't know there was going to be a penalty. Like if I had known there was going to be a penalty, I probably would have been a little bit more like cognizant of it. It makes sense if there's a penalty because we broke the rules. But
I'm so fairly certain that they even said there will be consequences for touching blocks.
But like, what's the I didn't know.
And it could be.
No, yeah, it's gonna be a slap on the hand, or is it
Some
gonna
of you
be
don't live in perpetual fear of getting in trouble, and it shows.
Tim, how many times did you, when you formulated the rules for the challenge, how many penalties did you expect to give out?
Of that particular challenge?
Yeah.
1 or 2, and then I kind of thought that people would adjust their behavior accordingly.
Because you didn't tell anyone, like, hey, you didn't say like that's a penalty until the
end.
Until the end.
Well,
and just
and
racked.
Credit where credit is due. It was mainly Ben who was keeping track of the penalties. I was not doing a great job at that. So that's part of
shady
yeah,
Ben.
I know. Yeah. And I will say, for what it's worth, when I was going back and doing the editing, Trish definitely touched the blocks at least twice, and we only clocked her once. So
how much money was in the pot at that point after that challenge? Like $10, $15. Like you lost. It was a large penalty, I think.
Yeah, it was $45 deducted.
You want to know when else we lost a bunch of money? When none of these people can identify faces.
The faces. That was
Mira,
that was so really frustrating. That was so frustrating. I was the only person who could identify a duplicate, and I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Well, you know what is you and I said this. Your brain I'm amazed by it, and our team did so well several times because of you. And I think it's you see, in my opinion, you see like the whole picture. So like you seen all those faces, and like I don't know. I thought we were just so like here, and you just see the big picture of things. That's how it feels to me. I don't know.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, it's very much like that. I can kind of like see things and categorize them really quickly into different sort of things. So when they would show 2 very similar faces, I could be like, okay, well, that one had a mustache and that one didn't, or that one had a railing behind them and that one didn't. So that was a challenge that did really play to my strengths. But being told that after I got it right, I could not assist was probably the hardest, because you can see my face in the background of every single time you guys either press the wrong button or or you miss the person that it was. My face is screaming because I can't say anything, and I'm just like.
I will say, Mira, watching the season, I wrote you off as not the mole. Like she's trying so hard and doing it, and like she's so into it, and like especially with the whole post thing, I was like, there's no way she's the mole. Watching how she's playing right now.
Yeah, I had a couple people tell me with the first few episodes they were convinced it was me, and I was like, I don't know how you got that. I was very clearly not the mole, but I guess I believe it happens in episode 1, but it was night 1 as well. When I called out like the order of the puzzle that we were going in, people like that's a big thing. People were like, "Oh, why did you notice that?" And I'm like, well. Personally, I'm going to blame Matt and Steven for me noticing that immediately and here's the thing, it got messed up in how someone relayed it in the actual show. Someone said it was Matt that said this, that, and the third, or that it was Steven that said something. What actually happened was Matt came back from going to the bathroom and sat down and said, oh, we are going to be divided up into 3 groups, and the mole is going to decide what those groups are. Well, and Steven, and that he just got a text, and that's how I knew it. Steven then picks up his phone and pretends to get a text. He's like, actually, our groups are going to be the tables were sitting at for dinner. And then Wayne happened to be seated at the table. And when we got back and they pulled out the board, I was like, oh, well, that's just where we were seated at for dinner. So I was like, well, it's probably one of the people that were sitting there or overheard it because apparently he didn't even do that intentionally.
Yeah, it was completely coincidental. He decided that order in advance. Like, actually decided we had the initial cast of 13, decided it like in May. And then as people had to shuffle in and out, I would be like, okay, where do you want to put where do you want to put Richard? Where do you want to put Mira? So like he was he came up with that order well in advance, and it just so happened to play out in this really crazy way.
Crazy. That puzzle challenge, thank God there wasn't penalties because
It was bad.
it's so bad.
So round 2, you have the auction, and so Mira, this auction goes great for you. Nate and Richard, this is an ill-fated auction for you. Looking back, what should you all have done differently in this auction?
Not bet at all. It was just so hard because I was like, oh my God, I have the most coins. Like, that's so great. I was like, I don't want to use them all. And I was like, maybe I'll go for a prize that like I don't think everyone will bet on. And it was just like each round it just seemed like it switched from like people were going up for the obvious choice, and then like the second round it was like the not so obvious choice. And so that third round I was like, okay, I haven't bet yet, like, or gotten anything. I was like, maybe I will put like, I don't think I put like a very large amount, but I wanted to put like enough to at least somewhat guarantee it. And it was just just enough to really put it over for me to get that disadvantage, and that really sucked. I was like, I shouldn't have bet at all.
Yeah, I think me and Nate had a lot of like self pressure on us because like we had the most money to spend, so it was like we got to do something with this. We got to make it worth having it. And in hindsight, I wish I would have been more like not aggressive, but like more. I would have been more talkative to people, like going over to them and having secret conversations, like trying to like hatch up a plan collectively. I remember at the time not wanting to do that because like I didn't want to like.
I tried to help you.
Yeah, you did. You really did. I didn't want to like try to single people out. I was gonna bet on the Joker for real the second round, and I think like had I done that and just spent less money, I would have like if I would have spent 15, I would have had plenty to spend on the exemption in the third round. But I really didn't want anybody to get any exemptions, and after me spending it all in the second round, I had no way of preventing somebody else from getting it in the third round. So I would say like be more conservative into the last round if anybody ever plays that game again.
Yeah, I got the idea for that kind of format of like where you have the 2 items and then whichever one has the lowest total being the one that the person ends up getting. I got that from a show that was on Netflix called The Devil's Plan. I don't know if anybody.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love The Devil's Plan and The Genius.
Yeah, and I when I was watching it, I was like, oh, that would be a really cool way. You could like adapt that to the mole with this, because one of the things like whenever they have like the advantage auctions on the mole where they're betting or like using money from the pot, it just ends up being like a bloodbath. People drain the pot completely. We saw that multiple times happening in the Netflix version, and so I wanted to avoid that while still having the, I guess, drama of an auction of some kind. And I think that with the kind of, balancing risk and reward of potentially ending up getting a penalty point, and then also the ways like, okay, can you play this to screw somebody else out of an advantage and get them to be penalized? And so I was pleased with how it ended up working. I would love to see somebody else do a similar twist in their mole game. If any other mole LRG producers are watching,
There is a Survivor LRG host and producer who wants to take that for their game. So
Yeah,
awesome.
they should. It's super clever. Like, even though it didn't work out great for me, like that was so fun. Like, that was one of the coolest like challenges. Us all like rating each other and like getting points based on that, I thought was so cool. And like some people did it random, some people
yeah,
like
they
really
didn't follow
actually,
the rules again.
yeah, like
I follow the rules
a lot of us like actually did the list how we were told to. So it was fun to see like how everybody shook up in the rankings or whatever, and how they balanced their like, you know, checkbook or allocated their funds. Like, I thought it was super cool, like very, very genius idea.
So I have to ask Richard, when the double elimination happens, when you offer the bribe, was that premeditated or is that just on the spot? I gotta do something.
Well, okay, so yeah, it's two parts, right? So before I came, I had watched seasons 3 and 4. Seasons 1 and 2 are private, I think, on the Mole Ohio. So I reached out to Tim, and he actually sent me the seasons on Google Drive. So like I got to watch season 1 and 2 of the Mole Ohio before I came. You know, I wanted to be properly prepared. I've watched, you know, the Mole, just the regular show, and We Is the Mole and Dave Mole. So like I knew the game, but like I just wanted to be prepared for like anything that might have happened before to happen again. And I wouldn't say it was premeditated, but once we found out, it was like I was just planning on like getting up and walking out after I was eliminated, but then they started like another name got brought up, and they were like, oh shit, let's like see if there's somebody else that's going to be eliminated. So sitting there watching all them names go through like gave me a minute or two of like time to like think quickly, and like all that I could come to was like, I don't want to leave this game, like I want to be here. So once Nate got eliminated, like I just decided to stand up and speak my piece. And I think that incorporating the whole, like, you know, how Tim paid Rachel to leave, was it, I'm sorry, what's her name? Rachel?
Nikki,
Sorry, I'm thinking of Rachel, crowd member.
Mhm.
Nikki, the $50 to leave the first time, I was like, this is kind of like a beautiful segue. It's like paying homage to like a previous season, and I hadn't even discussed it with Tim like before. I just like did it, and I thought in the moment like I was gonna get shot down, and I probably like would never see the light of day, like with, you know, the video footage. And you know, it somehow it worked, and like ended up being one of like the craziest moments. So like I'm glad that I did it. You know, obviously not happy like going out the very next round and how I performed, but it wasn't premeditated. It was more so the whole double eviction or double elimination gave me the time to sit there and be like, what can I do to get back in the game? And that was the best that I could come up with, like on the spot.
And so I know Nate said like at that point he was like, okay, I think I know it has to be Wayne, especially after confronting Wayne and Wayne kind of not giving me the great answer in the moment of saying, you're the mole, aren't you? Who were you scratching out saying, all right, I can't suspect these people. I know Kat was on your suspect list, and so who did that narrow it down for you for?
Yeah, so it took Nina out of the picture completely for me, and the only person that I like really kind of told that to was Sarah. Sarah, after I was eliminated, we were in the car. Sarah completely opened up her notebook to me and was like, let's go through each answer for you're in my test and like fill in where we were answered and try to compare. And by doing that, it brought us down to Nina, Trish, and Mira, or sorry, Wayne, Trish, and Mira. So those were the three. Like I had not been answering Sarah. I was like, if Sarah's the mole, she's playing the best game because she had me. Like me and her were like, I was pretty apparent. Like we were kind of each other's like partners in the game. I mean, I think that I had other great connections in the game with other people, but she literally like opened her notebook for me, and I was like, okay, like I trust this person. So those are the three: was Wayne, Mira, and Trish. After I was eliminated, were the three I was looking at.
And so that round you have the arts and crafts. And so I think Nate, Mira, Matt, you are all the artsy people. How much was like real sabotage versus just having to make artwork?
I mean, Wayne tried to sabotage, and I just called it out over and over. He said pitcher. He said pitcher. He said pitcher. I think the bigger sabotage was my baby Nate over here just talks real slow.
I was trying to be descriptive. Okay, these were some of these were pretty, explicit images.
I know, but I was like, he's talking so slow. I just need to know quick details.
Well, I was like just trying to really. I feel like people kept asking follow-up questions. I was like, oh yeah, like she's wearing like I don't know, like that.
Yeah, and I was like, Nate, stop it.
But yeah, Wayne, I was like pitcher. I wanted to I was like really trying to put in the word pitcher. And then when he didn't do that, I was like, okay, I have to.
We could hear you say pitcher even though the phone was not on speaker.
Yeah, and then I think somebody the phone accidentally hung up at one point. And
that was Matt, right?
Yeah. Matt was just handed the phone. I just handed the phone to Matt, I believe, and it accidentally hung up.
And it wasn't an accident. I'm just old and don't know how to work technology.
That challenge for me was very evident or very clear that, to me at least, that I knew that the mole was in the arts group. I knew that it wasn't Nina, and if it was Sarah, whatever, she got me. But at that point, I knew it was someone in that group. I knew it wasn't Nate, and I hadn't been answering Matt the whole time. And I just believed, when Matt talked to me, I believed him. And I watched him play before, and I thought he would try to play a similar game to make himself seem like the mole. But that's what kind of brought me down to the Mira, Trish, and Wayne. Was I knew more than likely the mole was in that group, and it wasn't Nate or Matt. So for me, being in that group kind of gave me clarity that more than likely it's one of these people.
I'll say during that competition, Trish went up on my list. She seemed really off to me. She was doing something different. And looking back, I have a question for Nate and Mira. I feel like maybe you guys are playing me a little bit because I felt like sometimes you guys, I don't know, or especially Nate, oh yeah, Trish is suspicious. I don't know if you're purposely pushing me that way.
Kind of. I mean, I was really trying to deflect everybody off. I didn't want anybody to know what I answered for the quiz. I was trying to get more information. And really, I knew that Trish wasn't the mole, but she was playing a really good game. She was so much more level-headed. She was so focused. She wasn't being emotional. She was really able to do things that looked suspicious enough for her to be a mole, but also participate in the challenges and everything. So I think she was an easy one because everyone was oh, I've played every LRG that I've ever played with Mira and Trish. So, and no, I didn't know that they were going to be on the season either. So when they both showed up, I was at first I was oh, this is my first one by myself. I first did Columbus Survivor last year, and then they showed up, and I was oh, this is going to be a little complex. Okay, gotta reset my mindset here. But it was a little bit. Everyone trusted my opinion on Mira and Trish and Kat, so it was really easy to really deflect onto them a little bit more, so that way I could focus on who the mole was and hopefully get some of the stronger players out a little earlier on.
I want to say something else too that had my blood boiling during that competition, which also made me suspicious of Trish. It had to do with Mira. You two were having that conversation on the couch, and you guys were like, you were saying names.
The first time we had a conversation in the entire game.
To me, I thought you guys were working together this whole time, and I heard my name in there, and I was like, "Ooh, they're trying to get me out," and I don't know who else.
He was not.
It was literally both of us saying that we weren't suspicious of you.
Oh, okay. That's why I just heard my name. I was like, "What is going on in there?"
No, we literally were talking about like who we were crossing off of our list at that point, and I was like, "It's not Matt. This man is playing it like he's playing Survivor. Like he's not the mole."
Yeah, we'll see. Even though Trish, Mira, and I play a lot of games together, we never really go into it being like we're a solid like.
We explicitly say we're not.
Yeah.
And in every single game, I'm so sorry. That is my dryer. It's very annoying. I can't turn the sound off.
You safe, girl?
Yeah, but so in every game that Trish, Nate, and I make an appearance in together, especially me and Trish, it always bites me in the ass. It doesn't ever bite any of them in the ass. Everyone's always like, Mira won't turn against them. Mira won't do this. Mira's going to protect them. Meanwhile, I'm like, I've had to either straight up eliminate them in a competition like against them or write them to vote them out in almost every game I've played with them. I backstabbed Nate twice in the first ever game we played together. Like, I got him out multiple times in Columbus Survivor. I was like, I don't know why people think this just because they're like, Trish is one of my best friends in the whole world and I absolutely love Nate with my whole heart. Like, I'm like, they're always like, well, Mira's not going to go against them, so we need to pit them against each other now to make it happen. I'm like, can we maybe not put it on me? Can I not get the short end of the stick for once for this?
You're not in the same cast for Surviving Bloomington, right?
No, I am the only person from the Mole, Ohio that is on Surviving Bloomington season 7. I didn't play with anyone for Ohio 2024 and season 7. There was supposed to be a 2023 Ohio Mole alum on, but he had to drop due to having to do his residency in Virginia around that time. Yeah. So Greg had to drop from Bloomington, but that's okay. Those episodes should be airing in February is Casey's timeline currently. So
awesome.
Is that the same Greg does that same Greg do the music for the show or like something in the credits? Okay.
No, that's my cousin.
Okay. I was like, I wonder if that's because I saw in the credits like a Greg. I was like, I wonder if he does the
different Greg.
But whoever does the music, shout out to them. That's such like a catchy like theme intro song. It's like very mysterious, like Anderson Cooper style music, mole vibes. I like it.
Yeah, he did a great job.
Okay, now it finally stopped.
So Matt, you have the most interesting role in the photography test because you are with Wayne, roaming the city, taking photos or mistaking photos and whatnot. I'm curious, like, were you the first on the pitch? We should mess this up, or was Wayne the one that pitched? We should mess this up. Like, talk through that whole scenario.
Well, I think at this point I trusted Wayne and wanted to go far in the game with him. So he was reading the directions, and what I understood was that each team had, their specific one, but if we didn't get any of them, we would get something. I think there was, and Tim, correct me, if we got both of them, we might get something too. I can't remember what it was. Okay,
correct. Yeah.
I didn't know that if we got both of them. If I didn't know both of them, I would have been like, let's get all of them and get that money because I'm going to win this game. But so that was one thing. And then, I mean, watching the whole season back, I feel like I'm being like the editor's like, haha, Matt, because there's so many times where I'm like, the mole couldn't steal a ball or the mole wouldn't do this. And it's what Wayne was doing. But I remember we were walking back, we had taken 2 sets of pictures and we're like, oh, we're going to go, do the thing. And he's like, I'm like, well, delete these. And he's like, okay. He's having issues. I'm like, what is going on? And just now playing it back in my head, I'm like, oh, he's messing up things.
Yeah, I think Matt, you were at such a like disadvantage because to me, outwardly, Wayne didn't seem to have like strong social connections in the house, but his strongest connection was with you, I thought, like, and having him like lean on you for information and vice versa, it must have been hard to like not really like look at him like that when he's like trying to actively help you. And you know, like I just think it seemed to me, at least, like it would have been a lot harder for you to pick him out of anyone, because like he was like at least actively appearing to work with you.
Like he played with my emotions like most men do. No, I'm just kidding.
I hope your husband's watching this.
But that's part of the game, right? There's social connections. Like, you know, I like in the car that I had that conversation with Nate, like I'm looking for a number one, but then I kind of look around like, well, maybe he was like, yeah, sure, let's share information. But to me, like with you, Richard and Steven, we had kind of that alliance talking about, and it could have gone somewhere, you know, if Steven was the first out and you weren't Sarah's bosom buddy.
I didn't know there were alliances happening this season. I'm gonna be real honest. I was in like coalition number 1 last season, and I had no idea there was a single alliance going on this season. I was like, everyone's playing by themselves. It's just me and my numbers.
When you meet us, you were so good.
Yeah,
I
you really were.
Said, I said, episode 1, I'm bad at math. And then what did y'all let me do? Fucking do math the entire season, thinking I was correct.
I was very impressed on your quiz times, Mira. Like you were consistently like one of the fastest people to finish your quizzes, and like I don't know, I just thought that was very impressive. Like you were like beating me by like minutes.
I read very quickly, and test taking was a skill from when I was a child. That's what they do in the gifted programs. You just get real good at taking tests.
Yeah. Well, it definitely paid off for you that like in the game, I think, because I think you were like literally 1 or 2 every single time with the times.
I will say that because I don't know if it made it into the final cut or not, we would have had a much lower pot for the winner at the end if Nate hadn't still been in when we got to the water gun face-off, because I was not going to give Wayne my item. The only reason I did is because Nate is the one who said, well, why don't you guys go back and forth every 30 seconds? I was going to let the pot drain until he handed me the water. I was not willing to, I was willing to lose all of the money. And it's only if anyone else had said it, I would have said no. But because Nate said it, I was like, fine.
I'm surprised Wayne. I think Wayne is so shocked in the moments that when you hand him over the water, he's like, okay, and he just shoots it immediately.
Yeah.
He's just like, he doesn't even think like, how can else? I'm in the perfect position. What else can I do? It's just like, well, shoot, I can't filibuster. I guess I'll get immunities.
Yeah, I think that's why I was trying to convince Mira to give it to Wayne, because I was like, is he just gonna hold it and like make it really obvious that he's the mole, or will he like shoot it real quick and like save the pot? So I was like, I knew he was the mole at that point, but I was just like thinking like money conservation wise, I was like, he'll definitely get it like right away, just to collecting the attention on himself. But then I felt bad because then Mira was at risk, and I was like, oh god.
In retrospect, Mira, should you have said no, I go first?
No, I just wouldn't have given it to him, and I would have let the pot run down as my intention originally was until he handed it to me anyways. I would have just been like, no, you can, like, I'm not, like, we can just, I'll let it go to 0. I'm not here for money. I'm here to win.
Tim, from a production perspective, what was more fun? Watching the charades group in the photography test, or listening to the bird calls in the bird test?
So I was not upstairs during the charades part, so I only saw that secondhand, like after the fact. Aside from just like the parts that I would catch on the laptop downstairs because I was with Mira and Nate for that, so I could see it a little bit on the laptop. But being with Nina and Nate for the bird calls test was hilarious. I had so much fun. Also, going back and editing that, like, was I was cracking up. So I would have to say the bird calls was the most fun for me, like, to watch.
The perfect bird calls.
Yes.
If anyone wants to know, Nate on his dossier said that his hidden talent was impressions, and we learned very quickly how false that was.
Quality bird calls. I was like, y'all just can't hear.
Y'all said caw, caw, and it was not a crow or a raven.
When that first bird call came out of your mouth, Nate, I remember listening. It's so hilarious.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know. I think in my head, I was like, oh, this is going to come out so good. And then when I actually heard it, I was like, oh my God, what did I just try to do? Like, this might be a little harder than I thought. But I mean, looking back, I think they were pretty close to the audio. I just think that you guys had a little issue looking through the library. It definitely wasn't a barn owl.
I don't know many birds that go coo, coo, that aren't pigeons or doves.
Well, you guys chose barn owl.
For that one, I don't know. I also didn't have control of the laptop. Wayne had control of the laptop. I just kept telling them that y'all were doing bad bird calls.
Which I think that was a good place for Wayne to be in for that.
Yeah.
The challenge. Kind of
Yeah,
like
he intentionally messed up a
Definitely.
few times by like clicking onto things.
Yeah, and Sarah's just like, oh, it just must be a crow. Just click that. I'm like, she didn't even listen to the freaking noise.
I mean, so Nate, by the bird call test, you are going kind of all in that Wayne is the mole. Are you? And it's kind of hard because everyone knows you're not the mole. So are you able? Is there anything you're trying or able to do to try to like avert suspicion from Wayne, put on someone else, or like you can't really put suspicion on yourself? You're in such a weird place.
Yeah, I really was trying to tell people like, oh, I've actually put a lot of like of my votes on that test where I got out on Cat, and so like I try to use that as like a bit of a deflection because we know they weren't the mole. And so I was like trying to just make it seem like I was like kind of back to square one after that first round. And then I just really was narrowing it down to 3, but I'd put a lot of suspicion on like Matt and like say that Trish was playing different. And like, I was really just like feeding into what other people were telling me. So if they're like, oh, Mira was acting strange at challenge, I'm like, yeah, she really was, wasn't she? I was like, she's just like, I just feel like she's been acting so different. I played so many games with her. Like, I don't know. Like, and like anytime it was Wayne, I was just kind of like, I would feed into it like a little bit, but I was like, but I put so many answers on him and Kat the round that I got out. So it was like, I was really trying my best to kind of like mitigate that a little bit. But like, yeah, I was going all in for however many, like 6 quizzes in a row. And like knowing who he was the whole time, it was just like, I was just mainly like, I just got to get to the end and I'm going to win. I was like, I just got to study this man nonstop and just make sure that nobody knows that I know that I just think he's the ball already.
And so going to the finale, did you have suspicions that Sarah and Nina were also going all in on Wayne at that point?
Yeah, I figured it was pretty obvious, just because they were both like kind of throwing suspicion on each other, especially Sarah. Sarah is a bad liar. She is like, she's so crafty and she comes up with like some of the craziest things, but I'm like, girl, I am not falling for that. Like she would, like whenever it was like me and Richard, she was like, oh yeah, will you tell me any information? I'm not working with Richard. I'm just like, I just want to know for myself. So that way, if you make it to next round, we can work together. And I'm like, I know damn well you are working with Richard. I was like, you guys have been together like nonstop the entire game. And like now all of a sudden when he has a 50% chance of going home the next round, you're not going to give him any information. So I just didn't really trust Sarah, but I knew that she had a good idea the entire time of who the mole was. So I think it was just trying to plant like seeds of doubt on her or give her false information. Hopefully get her to just at least do worse on the game.
Matt, Mira, Richard, as you're watching kind of the end game unfold, did you feel like you had pinpointed the mole at that point, or do you feel it was still an open question for you?
I knew when I went out, like I was fairly certain that it was Wayne. I even said like in one of my exit confessionals, I was like, well, it's an L for me and a W for the mole, and like went like that, like W for Wayne. But yeah, I had figured it was. I was really like kind of bummed at myself for not going all in on him. I was just hedging my bets in the off chance that Nate was wrong. I would just skate by with 1 or 2 right. And it was really different to watch because, like I said, I had watched the other mole seasons or the mole high seasons coming in, and the previous season, I think that they didn't figure out who the mole was until like the very last round. And
Right.
a lot of people in this cast like came and really brought it and like kind of figured it out, not relatively early, but like, halfway through, I would say. Multiple people kind of knew that it was Wayne. And a lot of these people were freaking smart. Like, all of y'all were so tough to like battle against in the quizzes that it made it extremely tough to play just like a mediocre game and skate by. You really had to like be on your A game and like pinpoint on the test. Like Nate said, he was going all in for a couple rounds in a row. And I think that's really what it took in this season to be able to like get to the end.
Yeah, and I'm just looking back at the quiz scores. Yeah, Nate was the first person to go all in on anybody, and obviously went all in on Wayne. And then, yeah, by the time we got to the final 5, Nina, Nate, and Sarah were all going all in. And so actually, if Mira had won the exemption with the candle test, it would have been a 3-way tie between Nate, Nina, and Sarah, and I think Sarah would have been
Wow,
would have gone home on
crazy.
time. Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah,
Yeah, we know that Nate owes me a self-sacrifice in the next game we play together.
Nice girl.
I'll be taking that IOU if we're both in a little game in June.
Yes, or May, whatever.
Oh, or May. Well, if we're in the one in May, I think we're gonna be on the same team. So,
Oh.
but I almost came back from my quiz. The round I went and looked at Nate and went, if I go, it's Wayne, because I had changed all of my answers that I had been saying was Wayne to Sarah because of the pistol comment. And when I went out, as soon as I did, I was like, "Yep, there it is." And I was like, "All right." He got me to change it onto Sarah, which good on him. But yeah, I think probably I want to say round 3, maybe. I think a lot of people started like picking up on the fact that it was Wayne was kind of trying to fly under the radar a little too much. And so people kind of started turning their attention more towards him.
What's crazy is I'm pretty sure that Trish had him like pinned down before anybody like was like, I know it's Wayne, and somehow like
Trish
diverted
had
for
him
that one
as
round.
Trish had who is the mole and answered Wayne and went out that round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She just
She memorized
like
the
it was
dossier.
yeah, she memorized the wrong dossier, but then also just the way that she split, because she was still splitting between a few people in round 3, and it just like played out that she split in just the wrong way to end up having the lowest score, despite Wayne being like, yeah, her top suspect.
So what dossier did she memorize instead?
Matt's, I think.
Whoever's
Matt,
was
get her
right
in.
in front of Wayne's.
Yeah.
Well, hers was right in front of Wayne's. I think, but if I'm looking back at when I was looking back at the quiz answers, because we did the online, like the quizzes on the computer, I can look back at the answers, and she answered a lot of questions for Matt.
So, just stupid question. You all don't have your notebooks for the quizzes, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't have our dossier or our notebooks.
Right.
And so, Are you walking out of the quizzes and writing down everything immediately as soon as you leave? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I know I was, and we kind of all sat there like in a room when we were done. Like, hey, do you guys remember? Like, I have 8 of the questions. Does anyone have the other 2? And like we kind of helped each other, like at least with remembering the questions part.
This is behind the scenes info that I was not aware of.
Yeah. We
Once
come
we
back
were
in the
allowed to
room and
talk
be
with
right.
them.
I would be writing like,
Tim's
trying
gonna
to
deny all
remember
future
everything.
players their journal and notebook until after the execution.
Yeah, but it's gonna have to be.
So to be fair, we would not say anything until production told us we were allowed to talk again.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay.
No, it's very much we're all sitting there silent, like trying to remember everything. And then
after,
once they're like, all right, you guys can talk, and be like, okay, I have 7 of the questions and I can't remember 3. Like, what questions do you have? And we'd like write it, because no one's saying what they answered, but we're all just trying to be like, what questions were asked.
By the way,
I
the winner.
Nina!
Hi, Nina.
Queen.
I
She
love that we
slayed.
had our another female mole winner.
5 in a row for the Mole, Ohio.
Love to see it.
Wow.
Tried
Killing
so
it.
hard to break the cycle.
No break. No. Mm-mm.
No.
She slayed it for sure this season. And yeah, shout out to production too. Y'all did such a good job. Like, I created such a problem for y'all, like with the end game finale, like having implementing another person to make it like a 4-person finale was so smart. Like, because mechanically, like, Nate couldn't have been the mole. So
Right.
it would have been the mole and the winner just
Yeah.
there
And
at the
I
end.
was debating with John. I was like, this was at like the end of day 2, I guess. I was like, I'm gonna do a final 4. I'm gonna do a final 4. And then he was like, well, maybe you could do it, I guess, if Nate is still in, do a final 4. And I was like, I'm just gonna do it anyway. I'm just gonna bite the bullet. And so I just ended up condensing 2 of the rounds at the end. And I think it worked well.
Yeah.
Especially because, and I gotta give credit again to Ben and also to Rachel for coming up with the resolution for what happened after the nullified execution, because I don't remember exactly how long we were all, but production had like the little powwow in the billiard room, and we were trying to come up with a resolution for that, and kind of able to cobble that together. If I'm remembering, I think it was mainly Ben and Rachel who were coming up with those workarounds for how to resolve it in as fair a way as possible. And I think we achieved that. I don't know that we could have made it any fairer.
Tim, I think I've exhausted all the questions I can possibly ask.
Yeah.
Are there anything else behind the scenes you
well, so this is just based on Nina's latest comment in the chat, that what was so funny was that she and Wayne share a birthday. And so that was a point of connection between them. I think it was referenced in one of the episodes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're both born in December. They're December Capricorns, in case anyone is wondering.
Mm-hmm.
How much of their life do you have memorized? A lot.
Too
All
much.
of it.
I know an uncomfortable amount of information about Wayne. Like,
you want to know what I know? An uncomfortable amount of
information. Taylor Swift, I Can Do It With a Broken Heart is his favorite song. I can see his dossier in my sleep. Like,
split his pants at band camp. Yeah.
Yeah, band camp.
What's an uncomfortable amount of information that I know? I know that those words were not in the Bible. I know a lot of words that were not in the Bible anymore, thanks to the Mole Ohio 2024. We played Jackbox night 2 while most of us were drunk.
Oh my god, that was
and I wish that there was some footage or even just like pictures of like things that were drawn, because
I really wish that we had, because with it even became a plot point in the finale with the map test that Nate struggled a little bit with a map of Europe during a Jackbox game.
So bad.
I was really hoping that somebody had snapped a picture of it, but yeah. And I do still I don't know if Mira, if you want to explain the fuck and find out thing, but I still think about that every now and then.
Yeah.
So I have like weird little, I have echolalia, is like I have autism and some of my stims are verbal, and so I get like these things stuck in my head and I'll just say them. And one of the ones that I'd been just really into that around that time was fuck around and find out, along with raw, like I'm just gonna raw dog it. That's just how I was living life at that point. Jackbox, you can only have a certain length of a name, and I wanted my name to be fuck around and find out, but there was not enough space for all the characters, so I shortened it to fucking find out. And I got so much heat from Trish for doing that. She was so mad.
I was cracking up. I thought it was the funniest thing.
There's also, I forget her name, but Steven's like old like elementary school class.
Yeah, wasn't it Rich? It was
That was
Richard.
mine. Yeah,
Yeah,
Nicole
Baxter.
Baxter. Yeah.
Shout out Nicole Baxter.
She must be cast for season.
Yeah, Nicole Baxter for the Mole Ohio 2025.
Nicole Baxter was getting drugged.
I'll make sure to reach out to her and get her in there.
I expect you to do so.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That was such a fun night. Like, I wish that we would have gotten some like footage of that. Like, I had so much fun.
It would not have been able to go on YouTube, and
it would have been it would have been a sign in to confirm.
I will say we learned that Steven really is an ally in so many ways.
Did you all play the game where like there's the one or two people are the aliens, everyone else are the people in the spaceship? You have to try to space.
We did not. Person. That would have been
That's
a good
terrible
one
game to play after a mole season. That's all I can say.
We played a lot of Quiplash, and we played one where you had to draw things.
Yeah, Quiplash was dope.
And Trivia Murder Party.
Yeah, that was it. That was real fun.
But a lot of Quiplash, which is where all of these things came from. And it's why, you know, we all call him Daddy Matt, because Steven started saying that for some reason. I don't even know where he got it from, but I was like,
I don't think that was a thing. I think
it was before, but I was like, I don't know where Steven got it from.
Like you said, it's sort of automatically becoming an ally. I mean, you can only.
There were so many things that I didn't know Steven knew, and
you can only spend so much time in the LRG community without it kind of seeping in. So
we educated him so much that weekend on gay culture, and then he went to his next game and fucking won and got a girlfriend. So I was
and
signed up for success.
He really did. He really did like get the
even being the first
value.
He had so much fun, even though he was still the first out. He's like, guys, I'm gonna stay and get drunk the whole time, and I was like, that is my style. Golden Gate season 1 is what I did. Third out, and I got shit faced the rest of the weekend and caused problems.
Love it. But yeah, I don't know if I have any other specific things that I'm remembering that didn't get picked up in the episodes. One thing that we didn't discuss really at all is the house meeting that happens at the end of day 2. That was a very intense, dramatic interaction.
Yeah. I felt real bad later on. I was like, fuck, she probably thinks we all hate her.
Well, can I say something about, because, you know, I was asked a question who my least favorite player in the game was, and I said Sarah, and I do enjoy her. We had different strategies, right? And I felt from the get-go, I like her as a person, but again, the strategies, and I felt like, you know, Richard was going to be close to me at the beginning, and then she was taking him away from me, and they were always in this other room, and I felt like she was always trying to get information for herself, which is fine strategy-wise, but wasn't sharing with the group. And like, if we're all trying to figure out who the mole is, like there's some amount of share. So if she wasn't going to share, I wanted to like just strategically ice her out of information. And so I was happy that this house meeting happened at this point because I was like, yes, let's all turn against Sarah. So I just want to say to Sarah, I adore you as a person. You know, in this game, I felt like we're on opposite sides. But yeah, the house meeting was.
And I have to say, I think, and this is, you know, stuff that I've been hearing on like Discord too. Like Sarah played a good game. Like because I mean, there's something to be said for sharing information, and there's something to be said for not. And what I like about the Mole Ohio, what I really appreciate about the games that we've done is that any drama that does, or any conflict that does arise, is like gameplay related. It's not, you know, personal drama. And I think that partially is just because of the way that the Mole as a format works. You know, you're not voting each other out. You don't have to hold a grudge, or don't feel like you have to hold a grudge as a result. But I think even among a lot of Mole LRGs, it seems like we've done a pretty good job of, you know, keeping the peace.
Yeah, for sure. Like our message thread is always like popping with something. Everybody's very friendly, and it was everybody on the cast was like so nice, and it was kind of fun to watch unfold with like, because Matt and Sarah did kind of have like a little bit of a rivalry, and I really felt like kind of in the middle of both of them. And both players I knew previously were the Mole on different games, so it was like fun kind of just trying to watch them like battle it out. And you know, the house meeting and the strategy behind everything, like it was just a great experience overall. Like,
yeah,
I
and I
loved 10 out
loved
of 10 recommend.
Yeah, I loved, Matt, when you said that with you and Sarah it was like Mole versus Mole. I loved that.
Yeah, it was. It really felt like a battle of minds, like two great minds going at it with each other.
Well, and so I'll say for that house meeting, like I was like, yes, let's get everyone in here and turn everyone against Sarah. But I think Mira, like you were like, oh, she's like, oh, I'll go talk to somebody, and you're like, oh no, we're gonna do it all together, or not at all.
Yeah. That was me. I was like, no, you can either talk to all of us or none of us. And then Nate fucking went off with her. And I was like, God damn it, Nate.
Hey, I'm trying to get my information. I mean, I already knew, but I just want to cause some more drama. I'm like, yeah, yeah, take me, Sarah. Tell me everything you know. Make him jealous. I was just trying to cause a little havoc.
I'm like, and when I think about the season, and I think of you, Nate, first I think of your fashion options. And your laugh. Oh my gosh, I feel like in every scene when I hear your laugh, it makes me laugh.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's that was my high school superlative. Most noticeable laugh, not best.
Really?
They low-key shaded me, but whatever.
Well, as we wrap up here, for future players who are watching this, future both the Mole Ohio players as well as just general Mole LRG players, what is one piece of advice you can give for them to do in the game?
I'm going to defer to the alums here.
I would say just keep an open mind. Don't write anybody off. Always be paying attention. Always be writing stuff down. And try to have fun. Like, I think that if you try to focus too much on strategy, like you kind of lose sight of why you're there. So just really try to embrace the moment and like being there. I know for me personally, it was my first live game. So like I was kind of more caught up in like, oh, how am I going to sound in confessionals and stuff like that. Like these three people, like their confessionals were like amazing. And I think now having a little bit of experience, like dealing with that, just be yourself and have fun would be my suggestion.
I think anyone who's like a fan of murder mysteries should check out a Mole game, because like there's everyone and there's like one killer, right? But everyone's kind of lying, has their own motivation. So I'm not the smartest guy. Like I don't come for the puzzles. I come for a good time, and I really enjoy making the social connections and like being in a tizzy because I don't know who I can trust the whole time. So if that appeals to you, come on down.
I would say don't be afraid to be chaotic. This is a game where that pays off. If no one can see what your next move is, even yourself, then no one can like call you on it. Does it pay off all the time? No, but sometimes it does. And either way, it's always fun.
Yeah, I would say just remember that it's a game. So you can either play as yourself in your old like everyday life, or you can go in playing some kind of person or character. It's like your time away from your real life to really just fully immerse yourself into a new game in a new environment. And you can play any character, you can be any delusion you want to be, and make social connections and stuff that will last outside of the game, because no one really takes it too personal. And yeah, it's just always a good time. So
Yeah, I co-sign all of that.
Well, Tim, Matt, Mir, Nate, Richard, thank you all so much for coming here to talk all about this past season. It was, I know from my experience, it was a blast to watch and see it unfold. And so, Tim, when can we expect more of the Ohio Mole?
We're going to be back with another season next year. I'm going to be filming season 6 in July. And I hope again for, a September 2025 premiere. That's what I'm aiming for. But yeah, we'll be back next year.
Well, thank you all for tuning in. There might, I think Tim and I will hopefully be sitting down in the near future with more production to talk more about what goes on behind the scenes with the season. So get excited for that. But all of you again, thank you so much, and have a good rest of your evening, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, you too. Thanks, Steven.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.